are listening to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast, a place to empower women of color in the music business.
Welcome back to another episode of Pub Royalty Queen Podcast. This is your host, Janisha Jones, back with another special guest. This time we have Nazia Mollah. Nazia is the artist management coordinator for Roc Nation and music business consultant. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Naz as we're both advocates for women of color in the music business. She just exudes big boss energy, so I knew I had to have her on the show. Without further ado, Naz, welcome to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast. How you feeling today, girl?
I'm feeling a little royal.
Yes. You look royal, girl. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm so appreciative of you being on the show, and I know everyone's going to be inspired by your journey. So let's just dive right in. How about you tell us what your journey was like coming through the music industry and what roles led up to you becoming artist management consultant and coordinator at Roc Nation?
Well, I have a really firm and strong background in bank management. So I managed a retail bank for nearly a decade. I want to say it was probably like 8.5, 9 years total. I started as a bank teller, and in less than a year, I became a banker. And then less than a year after that, I became a manager. And I was probably about 22 years old when that happened. So at like a really, really young age, I was put in, a position of responsibility and authority. So I learned really quickly, what it meant to survive in like the corporate world. Mm-hmm. So I did that while I was finishing up my MBA, and I continued to be a manager for, like I said, about 8 years after that. And I left bank management. It was a really sudden change because I learned that the department was starting to outsource. And so that was kind of they actually started to lay off people in the department, in the state. And I personally feel like they were doing a lot of like outsourcing to states that have like cheaper labor because the roles were virtual.
Yeah.
So that's just based on my observation and understanding of businesses, what I saw was happening. So I had a conversation with my DM and I was like, hey, look, I basically became a woman here and it's been great and I've learned a lot, but if what I want to get into isn't something that's really going to happen, then I'm going to have to make some decisions and figure some things out. So ultimately she was like, you know what, just take some time off and let me know how you feel. Let me know what you want to do. So I took some time off. And while I was taking some time off, I actually had one of my college friends let me know that he was kind of revamping and starting his music production label over again. He had taken a little bit of time off himself and he really wanted to get it on and popping basically. And he was like, I really could use the help of someone. And he knew just where I was at the time, leaving the career in banking. I also was going through some personal changes. I separated from my ex-husband at the time and I had some time. And so he was like, what do you think about helping me with like just admin stuff? And I was like, okay, I managed a bank 10 years, admin stuff, no big deal, right? I can do it. So he basically gave me a quick crash course in about 2 months and taught me about like split sheets and publishing. And it was a world I knew nothing about, which was like the really cool part. And literally, in like 2 months, he gave me the crash course. And while I'm learning all this stuff from him, I was like, man, side background is I actually grew up singing, but never wanted to pursue a career as like a songwriter or an artist because I don't like being in the spotlight. And so I started to have this feeling of like a revelation almost where I was like, man, like I always thought growing up that there wasn't going to be a place for me in music because I didn't want to be a creative myself. I was super young when I got sucked into the bank management world. I was only 22 years old. So I didn't necessarily know what there was as far as like business or anything really. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll help you. This is cool. I'm helping him. A couple months go by and I get this job as a visiting lecturer at a college. So that's when I started teaching college. So I was teaching, and I still do teach. It's intro to business courses. So it's like intro to marketing, communications, accounting, HR, all that stuff. And I was a visiting lecturer. So I wasn't teaching much at the time. So I was still able to learn a lot about the music business and the industry and what it was really like. At the same time, I was meeting a lot of people because I was taking his calls. I was taking meetings with him. I was going to sessions with him. And I was interested because of me having that revelation of, I love music. Like, this is so cool. Like, that there's a whole business world here. So not even 2-3 months go by, and he basically asked me, he's like, hey, you know, what do you think about co-owning this music production label with me? And really, like, because we'd known each other. So what I didn't mention is we had known each other from college. Remember, this was a college friend. And he was like, you know, what do you think about actually doing it with me? And I was like, you know what? Like, a really big part of me is like, fuck yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse here, but
of course.
I was like, yes, absolutely. Let me think about this though, because again, I don't know this business and I've only known it for 2-3 months, whatever you've taught me to this point. Thought about it for a little bit. And then I made a deal with him. I said, look, I will do this business with you. I'll go half in, go halvesies, right? I'll do this with you only if I can move to LA. And the premise of me, I was living in San Diego at the time. The premise of me moving to LA was, I need a part-time job because I'm not working at the bank anymore, right? I'm kind of just hanging out. Yeah. Don't really have like a full-time salary. And, you know, I am leaving my ex-husband at this time. So financial stability, all these things were things that I needed to consider while making this transition. So I told him, I was like, if I can get a part-time job, I'll do this music thing with you and I'll give it a go for a year and I'll see how it goes, because I think I can give it my all in a year and kind of figure out, am I going to thrive or not? So 3 months into learning about split sheets, it's not very long at all. 3 months into learning about split sheets, I became co-owner of a music production label.
Wow.
That I shared with my former partner at the time. And I got the blessing of my campus president from San Diego to the campus president here in LA. There's actually a campus out here. And so he reached out and was like, hey, she's a great girl. I'm not really sure what we're going to do because we don't have a part-time position, but it looks like you guys do. And she really wants to move to LA because she also started this like side business thing. So it'll be perfect. Yeah, it'll be perfect. You guys you guys get to have someone internal, part-time college instructor. Like, she'll come do the thing and then she'll do her business. And trust me, you guys are going to love her. Not even, like I said, not even 3.5 months into learning about splits, I ended up moving to LA. I officially signed paperwork with like a lawyer, like to actually like legitimately own this business. Yeah. Like, because legitimate kind of is all I know. I come from a very paperwork structured
compliance.
You know, like all of how compliance, like that's where I come from. I was a bank manager, you know? So we did the whole thing. I moved to LA and then 2.5 months later, the pandemic hit. The cool part about it is that during the pandemic, even despite the pandemic, a lot of people were taking advantage of social media. And I really do thank a lot of my networking that took place during that time to social media. I just started to hit up everybody. I started everybody. And remember, I'm new, right? So I'm just hitting up anybody who's anybody, who I'm like a fan of, or like would love to just get to know or watch their story. And, you know, like, even if they weren't like really like communicative back, I started to just watch, because remember, I'm here to learn. I'm learning. Like this is all new to me. So we don't have to be friends. I'm just going to watch and I'm going to figure it out from here. Right? So we ain't gonna be friends, but
with a mission in mind and with an intention, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I was absolutely, I was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna watch. I'm here to learn. I'm here to be an observer. I'm a college professor. I've been a student my whole life. So this is nothing new to me, right? So I'm brand new to this music production business. I'm networking, and all of a sudden, one of the people that my business partner had introduced me to, he had just signed his artist to Rock Nation, the label. So this is actually where the story began. And so I actually ended up getting my business partner, a placement with the artist at the label. And so I did all of this within like my first 6-8 months of moving to LA, co-owning this music production label. So it felt like it was coming easy. It really, really felt like it was coming easy.
For you.
Right.
And so for it to happen.
And so here I was managing producers and songwriters, ended up building this connection with one of the artist managers at the label. We ended up getting the placement. And of course, at that point, I ended up meeting everyone else at the label, right? I ended up meeting the co-presidents. I ended up meeting other A&Rs, just because I'm going to their events that they're having for this artist when, you know, the artist had their EP release event and stuff like that. So a couple months go by, before we know it, 2020 is over. I'm done with my first year of giving this a try, right? My personal opinion, I reassess. I think of like the financials, like things that I can quantify, because again, that's kind of the world that I come from. So I thought of how much revenue my business partner and I made compared to his previous years. I did the math and it was over like 300% that I had helped. Yeah. And so I had helped him profit.
That's what
I'd helped him profit. The profit grew anyways in that 1 year over 300%. So I was like, okay, I think based on the numbers, based on the stats, this is something that I can do. And then of course, just based on the relationships, I was able in the first year to get my producer a placement with the artist at the label. So I did that. Fast forward to about 2021. I'm still working part-time teaching college. I'm still doing this independent manager thing. I need a job is ultimately what I come to. I'm like, hey, this part-time stuff is great, right? I've got all the time in the world, but unfortunately I don't have all the money in the world. And so for that reason, I'm going to need to do something else. So I start reaching out to my friends that I met in the first year in the business. And I'm like, hey, look for a job. If you know anybody, let me know. Fast forward another couple months, I'm on LinkedIn and I find an executive assistant job on LinkedIn at Rock Nation for artist management, which is not the label. And we're structured a little bit differently, even though we have a boutique label and then we've got our sports management, we've got our artist management, we have our publishing.
Right.
So I reach out to everybody I know at the label and they're like, it's actually at artist management, but like, we'll see what we can do. Send my resume along. I have this interview. I don't get the job, girl.
Oh, man.
I don't get the job. And I tell myself, I'm like, you know what? It's my first interview with a real big company, like who is actually like a staple in this business. Everybody knows the name, Rock Nation, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? First one, I'm not going to give up. This is one of whoever knows how many. A month and a half go by. They call me back and they're like, hey, are you still looking for a job? And I'm like, yesterday, today, right now, I'll meet you right now. What do you need me to do? I'll call the other people right now and then tell them I'm never coming back. Like, what do you need?
When Rock Nation comes knocking, you open the door.
Rock Nation comes a knocking, I go running. So, and I'm running towards them, right? And so that's ultimately where the door opened. And they were like, hey, but we're not going to start the position till 2022, top of the year. And I'm like, I don't care. This gives me plenty of time to let everybody else know that, bye. Right. I'll see you guys when I see you guys.
It's been real.
Right. It's been real. It's been great. It's been real. But ultimately what ended up happening is the college wouldn't let me leave. And so the college was like, wait, how can you stay? And I was like, I'm not really sure, guys, because this is a full-time gig. And, I'm going to get benefits. And I got some benefits at the college, but I didn't get everything. So again, having to make financial, savvy adult decisions. I was like, I'm going to have to go, right? Like, it's been great. I got to go. So they were like, how about this? We keep you on the payroll and you just come visit whenever. And I was like, sure, you want to keep me on the payroll? I get to say that I still have another job. Yeah, let's go. So I started in January as an executive assistant. I am still teaching college at the time. And then about a month and a half into the role, I ended up getting a little promotion and I became just a little promotion a month and a half in, and then no big deal, right? And so that was when I became an artist management coordinator. And so that was essentially when I was like, hey, music production label, I'm going to sell the business back. And I'm actually going to start my own consulting company, just so that I didn't have any sort of conflict of interest while I worked with Rock on the artist management side. I started my own consulting company, still taught college. And then I was.
Look at that. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. First of all, just kudos to you for, going through a separation from partner. We both had that in common, like having to relocate and try to find yourself all over again. That in and of itself is a challenge. So kudos to you for spreading your wings and finding your place here in this industry. It's very hard to get in the music industry, but off the strength of having the relationships, off the strength of people believing in you and you ultimately believing in yourself, You went out there, you made it happen. You learned what you needed to learn. You put your efforts and your skills into play. And like you said, increase that revenue over 300%, girl. That ain't no little thing. That ain't no little thing.
Ain't no little thing.
To see what you had to offer and hey, you know what? We need to invest in this person. So congratulations. I love to hear the journey because there are steps to getting into the industry. There are ups and downs. And like you said, you were very candid about how it's expensive to live here in LA. You know what I mean? So a lot of people have multiple side hustles and you have 3 now.
Right. I'm still, hello. I work 3 jobs at this point.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of par for the course of being here and being a hustler too. So I love that energy. I love being able to have that synergy between women of color. So amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the mentorship and who has helped you kind of come up in the industry and how important is it to have a mentor in the music industry?
Kind of like you said, relationships are really, really key, right? Meeting the right people and then having the right type of support from those people, I think is really important. Being a young woman, of course, it was hard to find a mentor who was just going to be a mentor, right?
Girl, talk about it.
Right. Let's talk about it. And so,
oh man,
me just being the type of person I am and knowing, the type of things I'm cool with and the type of things I'm not cool with. It was a little difficult, but I'm not going to lie. I had some really, really awesome people in my life. One of the first people that I would love to mention is, of course, my former business partner. He was my teacher. He was my mentor. He taught me about the business. Although he was asking for my help, it was here, I'll teach you about it in exchange of you providing me your support and services, right? So he and I had a very formal business mentor coworker relationship, which was incredible because I really got to just do what I was there to do and not have to worry about anything else. So he was one of those people. And the cool part about it is he had already been in the music industry for a while. He's now been placing music in the music industry for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been doing this for almost 20 years. He's young, like myself, and he was very young when he started. And so to have him and to have his support, it was crucial because I come from a world that has nothing to do with business. The closest thing, not business, that has nothing to do with music business. The closest I got to it is sometimes we had celebrities that would stop by the branch because they were making, that was, or, athletes, or just anyone. Yeah. And so outside of that, I didn't really have any part in it. So I appreciate him, his support, everything that he taught me. I appreciate how respectful the relationship was while we worked together. So shout out to him, shout out to Mev. The second person,
Mev.
Mev and I still work together. So shout out to Mev.
Because I just want to pause real quick because I think what happens sometimes too, when we start having these conversations is that men think that we're bashing them. And it's like, no, we recognize and acknowledge the guys out there that see us for who we are, what we have to bring to the table, and don't try to cross that line. You understand that there's a professional here in front of you, and then we can help elevate your company to the level that you want it to be. We contribute to the mission. So shout out to Mev because you're a real one out here supporting your girl.
No, for real, shout out to Matt, because he even told me, he was like, Naz, this isn't anything you can't learn, because I had pushback when he was like, oh, what do you think about owning the business with me? I was like, I don't really know. I've never had any parts of this. So for me to all of a sudden now co-own and actually put my social security number and all this other stuff on the line, you know what I mean? On the line for something like this, he believed in me. And I appreciate and I thank him for believing and for being so motivating and encouraging and being like, this is not something you can't learn and figure out, Naz. You got this. The other person was Jay Hatch. That's the name he goes by. He's a seasoned vet. He's been in A&R, he's managed. He's just kind of been in the business now probably for about 30 years. So he knows a lot of people. He's watched and helped a lot of people in their careers, and their journey of growth in this business. So Jay Hatch answered all my questions. So publishing, writers, what? I don't understand. What is the just 200%, 100%? What? I don't understand these numbers. And so he would answer all of my questions. And he never judged me. He never laughed at me. He never was like, oh my God, like, college professor asking me about 200% breakdowns. Like I never had that with him. And so that was really, really, really incredible. And so shout out to Jay Hatch.
Yes.
Shout out. Just those two people who educated me and answered my questions, and they didn't hold back on information, and they never awkward, too personal of like an approach, or it was never disrespectful. It was neither of them. It was never disrespectful. And being a young woman out of a marriage in my 30s, like I almost demand respect. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just a given. Like I dang near
you don't
demand
have time for the games. Like
no,
at the end of the day,
I don't, and I'm really not here to play patty cake with anybody. And so, and I try to make that known, like off, like without having to say anything, like when I speak, I'm here to talk business, and that's what I'm here for. So it's extremely crucial to have people who are going to respect you, but lead you towards the light. Having mentorship it's extremely key. I don't think I would have gotten where I have without it at all.
I love that. And one of the things that was revealed in the data study about women of color in the music industry is the lack of mentorship. And there are other studies that conclude that having mentorship not only is pivotal or influential portion of your career, because like you said, you are learning from the experts, you are taking in information that'll help you do the job better, but it actually increases your pockets. Like it increases your salary by over $40,000 over the span of your career. So to not have that mentorship is something that the industry needs to really invest in more. Like be very intentional about seeking out women of color and being present and giving them feedback on their work more consistently. And that's also how you build rapport with other leaders, if you don't have any contact with them, how do you expect to be elevated in any way? Like, and this is such a boys' club too, that it's very easy.
Girl. It is a boys' club. Like, it is a boys' club, and there's like all of 10 women
exactly.
Like that are actually in, high places and places of power, and they're extremely inspirational too. So
love it. So there are a lot of challenges that are unique to women of color in the music industry. Can you describe for us one specific challenge that you've had to overcome?
It was probably having to create a seat at the table. And I relate that to just looking around the table and not seeing anyone like myself. And, I'm not a very like overly loud, rambunctious type of person. I'm very like, read the room, keep your head down, don't talk too much, keep it light, keep it simple. And like, when you do speak, just make sure that you're saying something of substance, because that's the only way that people are going to respect you. Like if I am constantly like a clown or just a jokester or kind of like, just uninformed, no one's gonna believe me. I'm not gonna have any sort of credibility. And so in order to be able to naturally find myself a seat at the table where there wasn't anyone that I could relate to, who I could ask for tips, like, hey, how did you get the respect, or how did you gain the respect? That was difficult. Being a woman of color from my particular background, I think that was hard. And so I always had to make sure that I was educated, that I knew what I was talking about, and that I was never opinionated or bashing or disrespectful ever, like always having manners and just making sure that I sounded like, I knew what I was talking about, and not just sounded like I knew, but genuinely knew, because people can call your bluff, like, especially people who've been doing this for a very long time, which is almost everyone in the business except for me. I'm like the newest person here. And so I had to make sure that there was credibility in just me. So I want to say that was it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what it is that there aren't so many of us in the music industry to begin with. So when you don't see yourself, it's almost like we kind of psych ourselves out, like gaslight ourselves, like, do I even deserve to be here? Like, because you don't see anyone else that looks like you.
I wondered. I literally wondered. I was like, I was like, there's literally no one else. Like, I do not know a single woman from Bangladesh in this business. So it's like, I did question, like I'm okay here, right? Like they're not gonna look at me and be like, this girl is an alien. Like, what is she doing here? Her people, what? Like, you should go away, little brown girl. Like,
crazy. Like, and we know that diverse perspectives increase the bottom line for these businesses. So it makes sense that they would create more opportunities and seats for the table for different perspectives, but it's still like stigmatized. There was a situation where someone I knew was looking for someone to fulfill a role that happens to be a white person looking for someone to fulfill this role. And I was like, oh, I can find someone. It'll probably be a woman of color, though. And he was like, that's fine as long as they know what they're doing. And I was just like, what makes you think that they wouldn't know what they're doing?
Yeah, like as long as, what did you think I was going to send you? A useless person? Like, right. What do you mean?
Also, like, so I think a lot of it is people needing to check their biases at the door when it comes to, you know, the workplace. And for what it's worth, women of color tend to be the most educated. So the idea that they might not be competent is just completely ridiculous.
Let somebody tell me, girl. Let somebody tell me, like, excuse me, sir, I have 2 degrees.
See, and that alone, you know, I really feel like it's sad that we don't get to just show up and just do the work. Like, there's so many different hurdles that we're having to cross over or have to overextend, overproduce, outshine all the time.
Yeah.
It's so exhausting. So it's about keeping our head up and being very conscious about what it is that we know and just being very, showing up in our truths, being truly authentic to ourselves. And they're just gonna have to deal with it.
Girl. So they love it.
They love it. Absolutely. So what would you say was your mama I made it moment where you realized you were headed in the right direction, and what characteristics do you attribute to having reached that point?
The mama I made it moment was definitely when I got my producer, my business partner, his placement with the artist at the label, because I definitely had not even known about the business for a year at that point. And so when that happened, I was kind of just like, okay. I was like, all right, this is working. And so that was probably like the beginning of my snowball effect of like, mama, I made it. Because honestly, after that, almost every success, no matter how big or small it was like a mama, I made it moment. But that was probably the one that started it. And what do I attribute to the characteristics that got me there? The determination is just, you got to be so determined that I've kind of heard people say this before and explain it this way, to where people think you're crazy and you're obsessed.
They're sociopath.
Yeah, just a little psychotic, like it's that I was crazy enough to think that I could. And so that's what I mean by the determination. And even though I was new, and even though I hadn't known about it for very long, and even though I was surrounded by people who had been doing this for such a long time and who hadn't amassed the amount of, successes, or even if they were little successes that I had in the first 6, 8, 10, 12 months of being in the business, I think that was it. It was the determination, the belief just in myself. And that was it. I believed in that mama, I made it moment. And I was like, there's more. I know there's more.
Yes. I mean, the music industry, it's a long game, so it does take a lot of grit, and you do have to have that, like you said, very focused energy. Eye on the prize, because there's a lot of things that will get in your way and make you want to second guess yourself. Was this the right place, right industry for me? Yeah. And to your point, I mean, a lot of people I know, myself included, started off in the industry very young, like knew I was going to be in music. If I wasn't in music, I'm really not sure what I would be doing. But I love the aspect of being able to switch industries as well, because I feel like a lot of people do have that thought process of, well, I really do have a passion for music, but I didn't know that I could make a living there. So they never really tried it. So I love that perspective that you're bringing to the table is, hey, if it works for you, it works for you. And financial industry, you can move in any place with that kind of information or with that kind of knowledge. So
Yep.
I'm grateful to hear from your perspective how your journey transferred into from one industry into the other.
Yeah. Someone one day I shared this, my, career journey with them, and they were like, every part of your life prepared you for this.
Yeah.
Because everything that you know and that you've learned as a manager of a financial institution, because I've hired and fired lots of people, I've promoted and developed lots of people. I honestly cannot count. It's definitely over like 20, 30 people for sure in my, career at the bank. And so when I had that aha moment and decided that I was going to go into this business, it was a feeling of, I finally felt like my purpose and my passion had like crossed paths.
Yes.
Like what I absolutely love and everything that I already know, I can do right here, and I can flourish and in this career all over again, the same way that I flourished in my banking career, the same way that I flourished in my teaching career, I can flourish here that same way.
Amazing. I love that. Yes.
I love it too.
Because
I do.
we don't really get a chance to sit with our accomplishments, like we don't really have the spaces to talk about these things, the challenges and the triumphs. So that's also like just
that was my cat dropping. Sorry.
It sounded like a human. I almost was like, what is she? Oh,
I was like,
look me her right now. I know.
Girl, ain't no man. Ain't no man.
Oh,
cat.
No,
yeah, she did that.
It's a whole nother story. But no, that's so funny. What advice would you give aspiring women of color in the music industry?
It's a couple little things, but they all kind of align together and they connect. And it's keep your head up high, and keep your manners above, even higher. keep your head up high, keep your manners and your morals even higher.
Yes. Standards. Keep them high.
Yeah, that's really it. Like, don't settle for no, don't settle for a closed door. Don't settle for any of that, because I came in here swinging, girl. I came in here swinging, and I was like, I'm new, so what? So like, and what? I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna be saying nothing but Mama, I made it. So
exactly. So you definitely have to be strong and know who you are, because I think, especially if you're like on the creative side, I think there's a tendency for guys to see you only as an artist. So if you are someone that's an executive or in the business side, it's like, they're having to like switch their mind instead of how they're going to, interact with you.
Yeah, I have a brain. It works really well. So you can't pull fast ones. This just doesn't work.
No, I haven't been in the studio for years. You know what I mean? I'm not about to go, pretend like I enjoy looking good, but it's not for your viewing pleasure. It's not for the gaze. You get what I'm saying? Like, and I think a lot of that is it too, is that perception that we're only here to look pretty or,
Yeah, for a good time. No, I'm here to tell you that I didn't like the way that you stacked that. And I'm also here to tell you that you did the math incorrectly and 50% of it is not that. And I'm also here to tell you that, hey, we need to make some more money. How do we make some more money? Because I need money.
Well, and you know what? In terms of the money thing, like, I think salary transparency is such a huge thing. Like, it's very hard to advocate for yourself if you don't know what people are getting paid for certain roles. And creativeness, like, it's very hard to qualify that or quantify that, the level of creativity, unless you have a track record. But at the same time, it's like, well, if my male constituent is getting paid $70,000 to do this, studio management role, why do I have to settle for $50,000 for that role? Like, make it make sense. But if you don't know it unless somebody's telling you, or they're clear about how much that role actually goes for. So,
or you have to ask, you do research, you ask. Like, that's what I did when I was getting into the executive assistant role at Rock. I was like, I've never been an executive assistant before. Number one, I was kind of just thrown into management, you know, at my will. I wasn't like thrown into it, but I got into it really early. And so I was like, you know, how much money can I make? That, and you have to be unafraid to ask, because I didn't. I was like, so how about like 5 more grand? Yeah. How does that? You gotta ask, you know, you gotta ask. So it's really that you should do your due diligence, ask around, do your research. Because I did, I looked online, I asked people. And then of course I asked when I figured out what the numbers were. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna play with this a little bit. So
yeah. I think that's also just like a skill that we should probably learn while we're in school as well, like how to negotiate a salary, because they always ask you first, what is your salary range? What are you
expectation? Yeah. How much are you looking to make in this position? And I'm like, everything you have.
Right. Like,
how much y'all got in the budget? Give it all to me. Hello.
And then add tax, because
plus like, you know, 20 because I'm nice. Like, let's go.
But no, that's such a legitimate skill. Like, I think that we need to learn more how to do that, and to really represent ourselves well, and not settle, like you said, not settle for less. Yeah. So if there was anything that you could have done differently in your career, whether it was mismanagement or a misstep, what would that have been? And what would you tell your younger self?
This question is always a tough one for me. To be extremely transparent, differently, I don't know, tried harder. I don't know, tried harder. I mean, I tried pretty hard, but maybe if I tried harder, I don't know. I really don't know. But to be extremely frank, I don't think there was anything I would have done differently. When that person said to me that your whole life prepared you for this, my God, like the feeling of like, oh my God, you're right. When that person said that to me, like that feeling of like, yes, my life really did lead me here. Yeah. And all of it felt, although I was putting in effort because I was working hard, I was learning a lot, I was staying up late, I was doing things that I had never done before. My sleep pattern was all off. You know,
as that tends to happen.
My sleep pattern was all off. I wouldn't say that I would have done anything differently, because I really do feel like everything really played out for me so beautifully that I don't think I would have changed any of it.
I love that.
As far as thank you. And as far as advice for my younger self would probably just be keep going. It's something that I do now and that I tell myself now all the time, because no matter how difficult it gets, just keep pushing, keep trying, because eventually it does happen. It might not happen when you think it's going to, but the thing is that you can't give up, because the second that you give up is the second that you drop out the race. So
exactly.
If you don't want to drop out of the race.
I love that. Yeah, that's so crucial. There's nothing else to say about that. That is really the bottom line.
If you're not trying to drop out the race, don't. Like, it's just that. It's really that. Like, and I used to tell all my employees all the time, don't try, do. Oh, I'm going to try. No, I don't do trying. I don't try. I'm not a trying type of girl. I do.
That is a fact here in this business. It's like, there is no plan B. This is plan A, and it's only ever plan A.
This is all I know.
So you either make it work, or you're just gonna make it work. Like, that's how it is. Like,
I had to make it work. I was like, I love music. I know how to be a manager. This is it. Like, this is all it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to work a part-time job. I'm going to live off my savings, and I am going to figure this out. And there's no other option but for me to figure this out. That's that.
Yes. So if there are a lot of misconceptions about women of color in this industry. Can you name some that you feel like are probably, they're just not correct, or things that may have been felt your way, people felt about you that was not correct?
I think it's really just the undermining, because there's less of us and we are so outnumbered. Just thinking that just because you haven't seen a woman do it before, that oh, historically, because we know that things are based on trend and pattern, and just because there hasn't been one of these people before, that there probably isn't going to be someone, or that someone can't do it. The undermining. Yeah. Don't undermine, because you don't know us. We don't function the same way as males. We don't react the same way as males. We don't plan the same way as males. So don't think that just because you ain't seen it, that it doesn't work.
I feel like that is a huge thing, being underestimated all the time. And that goes back to what we were saying about having to overprove yourself all the time. Like, nah, that's
cross your T's, dot your I's, be on your P's and Q's, have manners, and the room will listen, literally.
Exactly. In what ways can women of color advocate for themselves and each other in this competitive field? Because we are taught that there's only so much room for women of color. So how can we overcome that?
Thinking that's how we can overcome that, by thinking that there is a limit, by thinking that there is a cap, or that there is only so much room. No, we did that. We put that in our heads. We kind of spoke too soon and said that cap doesn't exist if you don't think it does. And so I don't see any of that like as a challenge. Although earlier in my career, I was a little nervous when I didn't see anyone else that looked like me. I was like, you know what? That's cute. It could be me. I could be the first one. Maybe it is me. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I am supposed to be the first Bengali woman in the artist management end of things. So there is no cap. Just because there isn't someone that looks like me, don't set those preconceived notions in your head and see them as caps. That's how we can do it. There is no barrier. There is no limitation. We can all come together. We can all work together. We can all advocate for each other. There is no such thing as a cap on any of that. I don't see it anyway.
I agree. And that's the importance of this podcast too, so that we can see ourselves in each other. What tends to happen, or I've seen happen before, is that we get this like special snowflake thing that's going on where you are the only Black person. And so having the attention on you is nice until someone else comes along and then they look like you. Now it's only two of you. And then what happens is because there are so few of us, and I don't think it's our intention that this happens, but because there's so few of us, everything that we do speaks to the collective and not the individual. So if you, the only Black girl in the room, has an attitude, it affects the way that they treat the next Black woman in the office, regardless of whether or not she comes with the same energy or not, or comes with the same level of work that you do. So there unfortunately is that like indirect competitiveness that tends to happen. But to your point, if you come in like, hey, I see you and I see myself in you. I want to see you grow as well as me. Let's bond together. Let's collaborate. Let's show these people what we can do together. Then I think, we can overcome that. To your point, I think it is, just switching the way that, unfortunately, the way that the societal energy is projected onto us, and changing it to become something more meaningful for us.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a bad thing. Like, I know that it's like, for instance, the studios. If you're an artist, a female artist, a lot of guys won't have other female artists come to the studio at the same time, because there's this projection of, oh, they're going to be catty, or one of them's going to be upset that the other one's in their studio session. Well, I mean, there's a level.
Who said? Like, who really said? Like, did y'all put them in the room together? Like, did it happen? Like, what is this? Like, did it actually happen? No. Oh, you're just guessing? That's cute. Stop guessing.
Right. I mean, I haven't experienced that much cattiness in the workplace, but I know it happens. And so we have to be the ones, like, as the leaders of the team, of the group, to say, hey, we're bigger than this. We're bigger than this, and we've got bigger fish to fry. So let's just bond together and do this thing together and show these people what we're really made of.
Absolutely.
So I really, really, really appreciate you being here again. Like, you really gave some great advice. And I know that you're going to inspire other women of color, to come up in the industry, and those that have switched from one industry to the other, to let them know that they can actually make it in this business. What can we expect from Nas in the future? What are you working on now that excites you?
I still am consulting music producers and writers on the side. So I have just my hands in a lot of different pots with that. I am working really closely with an artist, and I've kind of just been supporting her in like the business manager role and capacity. I think that ultimately, even with Rock Nation, I think my next step is to move from coordinator to artist manager. So that's kind of like next steps as far as career growth, stuff that I'm working on that I'm really excited about. Everything as far as the stuff at Rock Nation, we've got a lot of really cool clients. We even do consulting for some, small businesses where we help them with like booking talent or, growing market share. And so I've been a part of like filming commercials and scripting them. And so, yeah, like it's been a lot of really cool stuff. So I'm excited to see those commercials like on TV, on the internet.
Yeah.
We already have billboards for one of our clients that just went up. So that's really exciting. So a lot of different things, just a lot of different things.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see what else I can't wait to see you on the TV, girl. Yes.
Oh no, it's not me that's on TV. I'm girl, never on TV. No, we've been working I just behind the scenes, like just doing the whole, getting the stuff organized, facilitating, putting it together, and just watching those things come to life. So that's really where I'm at, to see all the assets on TV.
Fruits of your labor.
Yes, the fruits of my labor. That's what I'm excited to see. I want to see it all pan out.
Lovely. Cannot wait. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
If they'd like to connect with me, they can follow me on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is Naz_Mo. So that's NAZ_MO.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Naz. This is such an honor and a pleasure being able to have an opportunity to get to know you. And I know we'll be doing a lot more together in the future.
Yes, I'm excited. Lunch tomorrow.
Yes. Get our grub on. All right. Thank you again. Until next time.
Remember, stay positive, inspired, and true to yourself. Go out there and kill it. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Pub Royalty Queen Podcast.